Hey everybody, I'm Nicole.
I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Sarah, and together we're the co-founders of Whale Tales, a living library of cetacean stories.
And today it's Mailbag! Mailbag!
So sit back and enjoy as we dive right in.
Woo! I got a little blues cluesy there. It's time for mail time. But anyways, it is. We're excited. Thank you all so much for your questions.
Yeah, it's always so great when we get them, especially because the first 2 days we don't get anything, and I'm like, we're ruined.
Everything's terrible.
And then we get so many great questions.
So it's Dolphin Awareness Month. Hooray! Are you
Yes.
aware of dolphins?
I
Always.
am.
Good.
Perpetually.
So we're celebrating with the mailbag. We haven't done a dolphiny one in a long time.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. And we do have some other exciting dolphin news.
Ooh.
We got our last killer whale ecotype for
Gotta
the
catch 'em
library.
all.
Yeah. We got a type D killer whale story, which was so cool. I'm
So
so
cool.
jealous. And there was amazing killer whale sightings in Antarctica in the last 6 weeks. And
Indeed.
all those people suck. Except please come on our show.
Yeah.
Except you're really, really awesome. And it's actually just, we're very jealous of you.
Yeah. And please send in all of your stories.
Amazing.
Anyway. Okay, I'm just going to dive right in. So, first question is from somebody whose name I cannot pronounce from Blue Sky, and I'm not going to try. So, it's tsuchidayosh on Blue Sky. Thank you for sending in your question. I'm sorry that I cannot pronounce your name. Their question is, why are dolphin digestive tracts / intestines so long? And so the dimensions of digestion tracts correlate with diet. A dolphin has three-chambered stomach, similar to an ungulate, cow, or a deer, pointing further to its evolution from its terrestrial ancestors, which I was just talking about.
Da-da-da. It's true.
Oh, because with my dad, because he was watching a show about a shark octopus, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
Amazing.
Anyway, since dolphins don't chew their food, the mastication, yeah, there's not an extra I in there. The mastication of their meal is taken care of in their first or their forestomach. The majority of digestion is processed in the main stomach or second chamber, and the last section of their stomach, the pyloric stomach, takes care of the remainder of digestion prior to contents emptying into the intestinal region. And we've got a whole free article you can read if you want to really get into dolphin digestion, which sounds cool. And chambered stomachs don't make any sense to me because I'm not an ungulate scientist, except I guess I am if
You are.
dolphins. But still, super cool.
Yes. And it's important because the question was about
Intestines.
like intestines, chambered stomachs. It's a whole. Their whole anatomy is very, very different than what we know of our own anatomy. Although I think most humans don't know enough about their own anatomy. So, yeah. If you would like to know more, check out the article. It's very, very cool. And spoiler alert, it's one of many free articles we reference in today's episode.
And
Woohoo,
it has
free science.
diagrams, which are helpful, and a
Yes.
diagram of comparing to a human also. Yes.
It is helpful. Could we make an Osmosis Jones type movie,
That'd be
but in
cool.
a dolphin? Oh, yeah, I'm into it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Or the Magic School Bus.
Yeah, why isn't that magic school bus in a dolphin stomach?
I know.
Or even if they did a cow, that would be cool.
Yeah.
It would be very cool.
Although that does remind me of the meme of do you ever stop and wonder if the magic school bus is inside you right now?
Anyway, next question. Are dolphins more intelligent than orcas? And this comes to us from samgree.n from Instagram. The short answer to this is orcas are dolphins. And all dolphins, all toothed whales, have shown to possess intelligence. But then the more complicated answer is we don't have a way of measuring, especially comparative measurements of intelligence, even between like cetaceans as a category versus humans.
Yeah.
There is no IQ tests IQ tests are actually really bad just in general
Yeah,
for
like I was going
humans.
to say, I don't even think we have a solid way of comparing intelligence
For
between
people.
humans.
Yep. And then
So,
you could talk about like learned intelligence versus emotional intelligence, and so
Yeah.
there.
yeah.
Also,
Woo!
capitalism and the patriarchy are in there.
Yay!
Yep. And I think racism also.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But even if we were trying to, which we're not, but if a researcher wanted to sort of say like, on of all of the 30 some odd, 40 some odd, depending on the day, species of dolphins out there, specifically of which orcas are one, um, let's rank all of them on intelligence. There is no measure to do that.
Yeah.
There's no standardized testing for dolphins.
Mm-hmm. They don't, because they can't hold number two pencils.
They would just be like, they wouldn't be able to read the Scantron sheets
Yeah,
because they're wet.
Yeah, it would just be
Yeah.
a mess.
Yeah. So I'm so sorry, Sam, but the short answer is, are dolphins more intelligent than orcas? They're the same, because orcas are dolphins and they possess what humans consider to be intelligence. But that in a much more complicated way, which, as all of our listeners know, we love to get more complicated and really explore all of the shades of gray except the ones in the books, is that the idea of comparative intelligence is inanely flawed. And even the idea of kind of looking at the behaviors that we see from all dolphins, orcas included, and thinking, oh, they seem to behave in ways that we as humans and with a very human-centric view of the world would consider to be intelligent, is inherently limiting as well. So let's just appreciate nature in all of its forms.
Yes. And can I say, I think not necessarily intelligence-based, but looking at this from an animal point of view, let's suggest the book An Immense World.
Oh, so good.
The,
Ed Young.
There you go. I was like, by the man who wrote Immense World.
Yes,
we'll put a link in the show notes, because it's like, I haven't even finished it. I've been reading it for a year and a half.
Yeah.
I read other things.
So dense.
It's so dense and so fascinating every time. And now I like can't look at ducks the same way every time I want to walk. And it's,
or spiders.
Yeah. So I highly recommend this book. We all do. We read it for book club.
Yeah.
And it really just takes what we think of how animals might view the world, like takes the lens off of us and puts it on them. And it opens up everything. So nothing to do with intelligence even. It's really more focused on perception and senses. But it's a fascinating way of changing how we look at animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't recommend that book highly enough.
Okay, amazing. Let's move on to our next question. This is from bluetideproject on Instagram, and their question is, do small dolphin species have a quote-unquote leader in the pod the way orcas have matriarchs? So in general, we can't generalize all smaller dolphins, because every species could potentially be different. And also, welcome to the broken record of this podcast, there's still so much that we don't know about so many species of animals, including a lot of dolphins. But as far as we know, there's nothing as well defined as what has been researched in orcas in other dolphin species. But you do see some different sexed groups of some species of dolphins, like bottlenose dolphins tend to have these like little gangs of boys or boy bands, and adult females with juveniles and their aunties are often cited in lots of species. But as far as we know, we don't see any real leader or matriarch like we see in some populations of killer whales. Even that, we don't know if that's true for all ecotypes of killer whales. Yeah.
We need a jingle. Maybe if we team up with the buffering folks, we can get Jenny to write us a jingle of like, we don't know.
We don't know, and that's okay.
More research needed.
And that's great.
Next question is from Eleanor Thom on Instagram, and this is an amazing question. It's a little long, but I'll read it to you. She says, "Hi, Whale Tales. I listen to your podcasts from Edinburgh in Scotland. Thank you so much. And my daughter, Little Red Wheelchair on Instagram, and I are writing a book together about caring wonder and whales. A question for you, and it might fit into your next episode. We are researching what is known about disabled whales and dolphins and disability in cetacean societies. In around Scotland for about 30 years, dolphins with scoliosis have been observed and recorded, and there are 2 specimens in the National Museum of Scotland who are significantly affected to the point where they had to find other ways to eat, not being able to hunt in the usual ways. One learned to break into salmon farms and died at an old age with 5 kilos of fresh salmon in their stomach.
Awesome.
Awesome. Just the way to go. Another learned how to bottom feed using one side of his jaw to scrape the seafloor, which is really
like
cool.
gray whale.
Yeah. The evidence in both cases was only discovered on their bones and the remains after they died. And these animals may also have been supported by other dolphins. We've also found out about killer whales with disabilities who have support from others in their pod, and we'd like to know if there are other cases of disabled cetaceans developing clever time or energy-saving alternative strategies, which may then be adopted by other pod members. We're also interested to know if researching disabled individuals could be useful in further understanding the general behavior of a whole pod, and is anybody doing work like this? This is such an amazing question, and we're so excited to hear from you and answer this and look into it more. Thank you so much, and we hope to read your book one day. That's amazing. Okay, so again, short answer is yes. Long answer is there is still a lot of evaluation and further research that can be done. Again, fund our boat.
One day we'll actually have a GoFundMe so that when we keep saying that, people can fund our vote. But for now.
Okay, so before I move into the rest of this question, we want to clarify some language a little bit. Most of the published literature dealing with cases that you mentioned use the term deformities rather than disabilities. Obviously, we would not use this term when we're talking about humans, but that's the term that is used more with animals. If you do a Google Scholar search for cetaceans with disabilities, you get a lot of search results looking at cognitive abilities and or dolphin therapy treatment with humans for different mental and physical abilities and needs. But if you do a search for cetaceans with deformities, you get a lot of interesting case studies of cetaceans with different physical characteristics and conditions or injuries. Nicole notes that she's found stuff for dolphins, toothed whales, and baleen whales, and porpoises are not listed, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist.
I went through the first 4 pages of search results on Google Scholar, and I did not see porpoises in there. Again, that doesn't mean that there aren't documented cases. I just had not enough time.
More likely that people just haven't looked. See our last episode on porpoises. Okay, so we have some examples, and we will link to these because some of them are papers and some of them are articles, but they're all really cool, and all the papers are free.
Yay!
So we have Syrah, the orca missing a dorsal and a pec fin in South Africa. There's a fin whale with severe scoliosis. There is some vertebral column malformations in New Zealand dolphinids with a review of cases worldwide.
And that's probably, I would say, because I did the research for this question, that article, the sort of like review of cases worldwide, that's the most comprehensive article that I could find, because, you know, going back to the question that Eleanor asked, is like looking for like anyone doing this kind of research. I'd start there because that's it's a full review of the cases,
and then probably also then look for papers that cite that paper.
Paper to do that,
or like the reference sheet of that paper would be a great
also
place to go.
Both ways.
And then there's another free article which is defining a common language to assess external deformities in free-ranging cetaceans. Physical impact was the most reported category. Injuries due to physical impacts were documented in 74% of the 253 studies we reviewed, which is not a surprise when we talk about strip strikes and entanglement. We've seen lots of pictures of animals who are deformed, who have broken things, injuries. Scars, injuries, spinal cord injuries. The one of the animals that was seen when we talked with Stephanie Stack when they were mating, the humpbacks, male humpbacks, he had some kind of deformity. that was maybe something to do with probably entanglement that caused him to be unable to feed. So there's lots of different kinds of deformities that are not genetic, basically, is the case with cetaceans. And because of the water, we don't know how they get them. And there's not a really way to tell. Maybe sometimes if we're able to perform a necropsy. But again, that's obviously not going to be everybody, a full-ranging, wide thing. And also still, you might not be able to tell. So, yeah, that's the story. We also did do a Whale Tales Watches episode about Winter, A Dolphin's Tale, which is, we talked a lot about the actual dolphin Winter, and her journey with her missing missing fluke. Peduncle. I know words. With her missing peduncle.
And on a personal note, we also have a story in our library about a time the three of us saw a humpback whale in Monterey Bay with scoliosis. I actually happen to have scoliosis. I'm grateful for the fact that it's non-progressive, but I've had it for most of my life. And I remember, I've always loved whales, always loved humpback whales. Seeing them is always really incredible. But that experience, seeing a whale and the naturalist on board the vessel talking to us about how it was really well known and apparently had scoliosis, again, whatever that means in another anatomy, but a really significant curvature of the spine, that's really stayed with me. But what was interesting was that naturalist, and that whale was really well known to the folks in Monterey, had never noted any special adaptations that humpback whale had due to its spinal shape. So I think it would be very dependent on foraging strategies and the deformity and how those two things either are incompatible or compatible.
Yeah, and the species as well, right? Because if this humpback's able to swim to Hawaii or Monterey or wherever it lives, and still complete its migration and do all the things, whether or not it's reproducing, male, female, anything. But we know that there's, I think his name was Moon, a humpback who had a really terrible spinal injury from a ship and was seen trying to swim to Hawaii, and unfortunately did not make it. So there's that, like, if they're trying to migrate and they can't get to food, that kind of thing. But also then if they don't migrate.
Yeah.
So then that might be a different adaptation and give you have a different outcome on their survival and their need to do whatever it is they need to do to eat and survive.
Really awesome question, and so cool that you and your daughter are writing a book. Please let us know when you have it finished. We can't wait to read it. Next question comes to us from Lindsay on Blue Sky. I was disillusioned to read of instances where groups of male dolphins sexually harassed a female. Can you shed any light on research into this phenomenon? Oh, Lindsay.
Boy.
Where to begin? I specifically selected to answer this question because not only can I shed light on it, I've seen it. We do have a whale tale on our library, or in our library, that I've shared from a time when I was researching bottlenose dolphins in Western Australia. It is full of trigger warnings, as will the answer to this be. So I'm going to, especially because we knew that there were some questions here that were submitted by children, we're just going to keep this fairly high level in answer, but we will include the link to that story if people want to go and read it, because it's not just detailing what you seemed disillusioned by, Lindsay. It goes a lot further than that. As to why does this happen? The, again, kind of short answer is that's nature. I want to be really, 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 really clear in answering this question that consent is utmost important. It is non-negotiable in a human construct in our minds.
Yeah.
But it is a human construct. So when we're talking about human behavior with each other, consent is paramount in all things. In the natural world, looking at other species, again, super, super clearly, any species other than humans. For humans, there should always be consent. For non-human species, we have no idea whether or not consent is a concept, let alone whether we know for a fact if it is a concept, it is not respected. There are, I don't know, thousands of examples of species who mate with one partner. It doesn't matter the sex, because it does definitely change depending on the species, choosing to mate regardless of whether the other partner is willing or not.
Mm-hmm.
And in dolphins, that absolutely happens. Bottlenose dolphins are probably the best known for this in the dolphin world or in the cetacean world, but they have seen it in other species of cetaceans as well. I think mostly dolphin species, though. I don't know that we've seen it. Well, porpoises too. No. We've seen it in everything, because then there's humpbacks. Yeah. So.
And the gray whale menage. But that's less. That's more gentle, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It seems to be. There's a lot of a lot of human emotion that goes into that. In terms of trying very much to separate our human view of the world from the animal view of the world, why does it happen? It's successful.
Mm-hmm.
It is. There's actually a term for it. It's competitive reproduction theory. The first sperm to the egg wins evolution.
Yep.
Wins the evolutionary race. I think that's all I want to say on it in this podcast. If you wanted to look more into it, Lindsay, as mentioned, you can read the personal account I have of seeing this happen. It was a lot to take in when I watched it, especially because as a researcher, I was working with a team of researchers, and researchers don't intervene in these situations. So, and then we've done a few different episodes of the podcast now looking at cetacean reproduction. One most notably, I sang a whole song about cetacean sex.
Yep.
We will include all of those links, and you can do more research there. But for today's episode, that's the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, it is something I was just checking to make sure we had a warning on that story, which we do. But the top thing is similar to what you are talking about, Lindsay, of just the disillusionment of what we think of when we think of bottlenose dolphins and what they actually do.
Yeah. Nature's a rough place, and it's not just happy jumpy dolphins. So important to remember. Okay, our next question, moving on from that. What's the current classifications of common dolphins, long and short beaked? From Astrapionte on Instagram. Okay, this is always a complicated and controversial topic around here. I think, at least according to Noah, which who knows, I feel like it's still up for debate, or maybe just not updated everywhere. But basically, it seems like they are officially two different species. So there's the long-beaked common dolphin, which is Delphinus capensis. They are slightly smaller, slightly bigger, and are found in the Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific Oceans. And then there's the short-beaked common dolphin, which are slightly smaller, length about the same, more common, right? Yeah, short-beaked ones are more common.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so.
And they are found anywhere in subtropical to temperate waters, including the Indian, Atlantic, and Pacific Oceans. So I don't...
Oh, and their scientific name is Delphinus dolphus.
Delphinus dolphus.
They're both the same species, but
same
different
genus. No, same genus.
Same
genus,
they're both the
different
same
species.
genus, but different species.
They were formerly one species. I think there is still lingering debate if it... like Delphinus capensis is actually a valid species group. I don't really know the evidence on how they were decided to be two different species.
Because they aren't orcas.
Yeah.
Everyone's
Everybody
allowed
else.
to be a different species as long as they're not orcas.
Yeah, I think also maybe because like all of the common dolphins are equally well studied, whereas there's less discrepancy in like one population's very well studied and some populations are essentially not studied at all.
Sarah is the most tactful of us.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to answer this question in a balanced fashion, but yeah, it's
And we're over here just like Bartlett,
we got
banging our heads
got
against the
gallery over
desk.
there. So I don't know, but they for some reason are two different species, and I don't know what implication that has on like conservation and management. They are both listed as CITES Appendix. Yeah, they're both CITES Appendix 2.
Which means
like least
fine?
concern. Yeah.
Least concern. Okay.
Yeah, so that's all I've got. There are two different species, but I don't really exactly know why or how you would tell the difference.
No, and it might change again tomorrow
Who
because
knows?
people have changed their minds. Who knows? Before we continue with the rest of the episode, we want to take a moment to tell you about how you can support this weird podcast and everything else we do at Whale Tales.
You can join us by becoming a patron at patreon.com/whaletales. You can join for $1 a month at the porpoise level, $5 a month at the dolphin level, or $10 a month at the whale level.
And each level comes with a variety of perks, like answering polls, getting postcards from us, access to extended interviews or extra stories our guests share, and you can produce your own fun flipper fact segment of the pod. So if we did not answer your question, you could become a patron and you could get a whole section of the podcast to answer only your question. Plus, we have 2 extra podcasts if you just love hearing us and all of our insane rambling and opinions. This is it this month or next month's Journal Club episode?
I was trying to find, I thought I deleted it, but it's here. Anyway, continue. This month is correct. Journal Club.
Thank you. This month, we have a Journal Club episode, and we're talking about the respiratory rates and the energetic impacts of bow riding.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
Because sometimes dolphins are just cute jumpy dumpies.
Yes,
and
it's true.
Yeah. And sometimes it's great, and there's a Lisa Frank poster.
Yeah.
Yes. So yes, check that out. Plus, we've got lots of other fun journal clubs featuring dolphins. There's a lot of killer whales in there. Yeah. Thank you so much to all of our patrons. You are amazing.
Thank you.
If you aren't able to support us financially, there's still other things you can do to help us out. You can leave us a rating or a review on your podcast platform of choice, like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. This will help other people find us. And you can also just tell people who are into podcasts and cetaceans and science about the podcast and everything we do at Whale Tales.
And you can follow us on social media at whaletales_org, where you can send us your feedback so that we can keep making this podcast even better.
Okay, next up from Patrick 0FVERAA on Instagram. I never know where the new word is supposed to start on Instagram names. Anyway, what cool adaptations do river dolphins have for non-marine environments? Well, we have an entire episode about river dolphins from last fall, featuring our good friend Emily Cunningham. So we'll link to that World River Dolphin Day episode, but I'll tell you a few right now. They have very poor eyesight and excellent hearing above and in the water. They have excellent echolocation, though not necessarily better than the marine species. There's not really physiological differences that are specific to the type of water, but one thing that's cool is while there are not statistical differences in the total length of the skull between freshwater dolphins and saltwater dolphins, freshwater is 457.9 plus or minus 62 centimeters, and saltwater dolphins are 462.2 plus or minus 14.9 centimeters. Saltwater dolphins reported significantly narrower skulls than freshwater dolphins, but further study is needed to elucidate the dietary behavior and why do I get this twice? Masticatory properties of the two taxa in their respective habitats to further explain the adaptation of dolphins to river and marine environments, which is a big way of saying Their skulls are kind of the same size, but they're different shapes a little bit, and maybe that's because of their environments and what they eat.
But we don't know.
But we don't know.
We don't know.
Get a boat that can go on freshwater.
I will say one of the things that peek behind the scenes with us listeners in terms of how we do research to answer your questions. It always starts with the most simplistic of all Google searches. And usually I do kind of concurrent Google searches between like a regular Google search and Google Scholar search, obviously needing to change the language I use to make it make sense. And one of the AI responses to, I can't remember exactly how I phrased it in the regular Google search, but I think it was probably like adaptations between between freshwater and saltwater dolphins. AI suggested that river dolphins can drink the water they live in. I'm not exaggerating, I spent 47 minutes trying to find a reputable source that can confirm that, and I could not find that. And then as I went through, I was like, it seems really weird to me that isn't something that we either know or don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Because the truth is, I couldn't confirm or deny it. I went through like 7 pages of Google Scholar or like search results to try and find anything that looked at whether or not river dolphins can successfully digest the water they live in, and I couldn't find anything. So if you are a river dolphin researcher, Emily, if you're listening, do that and tell us.
I would highly doubt that they do.
Me as well, just because it's but I don't know. What's weird that nobody's studied that.
Yes, and a reminder to don't trust AI.
Yes, don't. Yesterday I saw a post that Oz from Buffy doesn't have a van, so.
And he drives his jacket instead.
Yeah, he drives his jacket.
Or like at least check their sources. Like if they
always check the sources, regardless if it's AI. Check our sources. Check any sources you see on just random Instagram headlines, because those are just clickbait. Yeah. Just check sources and learn how to look at sources and what sources are reliable.
No one, but that's a different podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're not a Scully and Mulder podcast.
But I wish we would.
I know you do, but it would get even more unhinged than it already is. But my point is, don't trust everything you read, especially if it's just a clickbaity sentence, and learn to trust what seems to be, what has research and sources and has done the work into something.
That science matters?
I am. It's a bold statement here in March 2025 as the world burns around us. But it's something I've stood by for quite some time.
Oh, this is the sound I make when I'm actually both laughing and crying at the same time.
Okay, keep going. We can do it. Next one, totally not a controversial question.
This question comes to us from Amendoza 3090 on Instagram, and I'm going to read this question verbatim. What cetaceans in the dolphin family can be found in the Gulf of Mexico?
Hey!
Amazing.
Hopefully people in the future have no idea what we're talking about. Anyway.
But here's the fun thing. The source that I found for this, everybody, is the National Marine Fisheries Service article, which still calls it the Gulf of Mexico. Of course it Hooray! Does. For, I don't know, an hour more. And to answer this question, there are 21 species of cetacean that routinely find at least part of their habitat in the Gulf of Mexico.
Cetaceans?
Sorry, what were you going to say?
Cetaceans or dolphins?
Cetaceans.
Okay.
Yes. So I will read them all. I didn't count which ones are dolphins and which ones are just other parts of cetaceans, but there we go. So there are 21 cetaceans. And I'm just going to read them from the list. Sperm whales, brides whales, or brides whales. I still don't know how to pronounce that, even though we...
With the O's.
Broodies whales.
Ooh face.
Ooh. We're so unhinged today. I'm sorry, folks. Dwarf and pygmy sperm whales. Again, both different species.
Yep. Those
Cuvier's
look
beaked
completely
whales.
different. So
Yeah,
They do, to be
support that.
fair.
Yeah.
Cuvier's beaked whales, Blainville's beaked whales, Gervais's big beaked whales. As we've talked about before, the beaked whales all just get named after researchers for the most part. False killer whales, pygmy killer whales, melon-headed whales. So we got all the blackfish, because then there's the short-finned pilot whale, notably not the long-finned pilot whale. Killer whales, rhizos dolphins, Atlantic spotted dolphins, pan-tropical spotted dolphins, which are different than other spotted dolphins.
They have different spots.
I know.
Count.
Clymene's dolphins, striped dolphins, spinner dolphins, common bottlenose dolphins, Fraser's dolphins, and finally, rough-toothed dolphins.
What about the Rices?
I said rhizos.
No, Rice's whale. The new
Oh,
species
it's
that
not-
only lives in the Gulf of Mexico. Is this paper?
This paper might be.
You're
older.
right. Does it list them? Oh, that might be why the paper still calls it the Gulf of Mexico. Anyway. So 22. Thank
22.
you.
Rice's whale.
Rice's whale's there. So there we go. 22 now. As of this podcast.
Yeah, we announced the Rice's whale. Do-do-do-do.
Thank you so much for your question, Mendoza.
Next up, we've got a question from meganndautism, I think, on Instagram. And they ask, has there ever been an orca with dwarfism? Kind of, maybe, probably, not really. In terms of an individual with a mutation akin to dwarfism in humans, possibly, but there's no evidence of that. But in 2007, the orcas in the Ross Sea were initially described as a dwarf species, so like a whole species that were just smaller than another one. But in reality, they're the same species, just another ecotype of killer whale.
The type B smalls.
Type B's, yeah, type B small.
Type B small.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're just a population that is smaller. So yeah, in terms of individuals with dwarfism, not that we know of, but possibly, potentially possible in theory.
Yes. Okay. This one is from Perri. This was an email from a while ago, so thank you for waiting, Perri. Sometimes our emails get lost in all of the things. So Perri says, I'm a modest supporter and enjoy the podcasts. I'm wondering if you publish a reading list, books, articles, etc. I was on a snorkel trip between Maui and Lanai, and one of the staff was a true naturalist. Even though it was a snorkel trip, not a whale watch, I asked many questions and was left wanting more. I'm a baleen whale fan, humpbacks, North Pacific right whales, so are we. Thank you for what you do. Yay, thanks, Perri. So,
Thank you.
We already talked about it in Immense World. That's not specifically whales, but whales are in it. Yeah. Cetaceans. I just started reading a book called Fathoms, which I'm still on the fence about, but I'm very particular about my writing style and nonfiction books about things I know about. So, who knows? But there's one.
I was thinking we should like start a page on the website.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So yeah, rather than us like vamping and one of us is in the middle of moving and doesn't have all of their books and yeah. Hang on, I'll be back.
Okay. That have names. Eric Hoyt, John Ford, all the researchers that we have written a lot of papers about killer whales, also wrote books about killer whales.
I feel so unequipped to answer this question right now, even though I would normally be like the most equipped to answer this question, Perri, because as Sarah alluded to, I am in the process of moving and I don't have access to any of my physical books, and I won't for probably 2 or 3 more months. So I can like visualize exactly where on my bookcase my whole shelf of baleen whale books is, because I've got a baleen whale shelf and then a few shelves for tooth whales. And I know there's some good ones in there, and I'm so embarrassed by the fact that I cannot currently think of any of them because my brain is so fried. But I love the idea of us having a spot on the website, because then every time that we say something in a podcast, we're like, oh, go read this. We can just throw it up there.
Yeah, that's great.
So we will do that. Commitment.
I went to go grab a couple books because they were in far away and it's dark and I couldn't see them. But I have a couple. One is like it's pretty old. I don't know when it's from. It's called Orca, and it's kind of like a picture book, coffee book,
Oh yeah.
probably out of date by Peter Knudsen. Um, and it just has some really great photos. I think I'm going to say it's like oh yeah, it's from the 90s. It's published in 1996. So it's definitely out of date scientifically, but it's just, I really enjoy it. I've had it for a long time. On a similar vein, I have another sort of photography book called With the Whales, and it's probably similarly out of date. But again, it's beautiful. It's called With the Whales. It's photography by Flip Nicklin. So it's mostly photos, and then there's text by Dr. James Darling, and it's got all kinds of gorgeous photos and description. And then on a totally different track, I have one of my favorite, it's like a small memoir, and it's called Grayson by Lynn Cox.
Oh yeah.
And it's about a person who was swimming in the open ocean off, I think, like Catalina or somewhere in California, and finds like a baby gray whale that had been swimming with her. But then realized like if she kept swimming and like swam back to shore because she was done her swim, the calf might follow her. And so it's sort of about the journey of like rescuing this like possibly abandoned gray whale calf. It's lovely. It's short. It's really sweet. Yeah, I like it a lot.
I'm just looking back through my Goodreads from the past couple of years, and one that I do highly, highly recommend is The Breath of a Whale by Lee Calvez, or I'm not sure that I know how to pronounce that last name, but Lee is Leigh. And it's the science and spirit of Pacific Ocean giants. First of all, the illustrations in the book are beautiful, but it's it's a pretty dense but very readable nonfiction book that's really well researched. Lee is the research director for the Ocean Mammal Institute. So I really trust her work and her research. And she also wrote a book that I still haven't read, but is on my to-read list, which is The Hidden Lives of Owls.
Mm.
Yeah. Because I like owls too. I know that this is a cetacean podcast.
That's
but,
okay.
Surprise, we also like other things in nature.
Yeah, we do. And then there's also the classic Dolphins by Jacques Cousteau, which is definitely out of date, but still, that's cool.
Yeah.
Delightful. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, like maybe if we put up a page on the website, we could like have comments and people could add their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'll work on that in all my free time.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we'll put it on your list.
Yeah. It's
along
long
with some other things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Woohoo. Our second last question comes to us from Autumn. Hello. I've been listening to your podcast for the past couple of months, and it has reignited my passion for cetaceans. Hooray! We're so glad to have done that for you, Autumn.
Yay!
They go on to share, I have worked at a public aquarium as an educator for several years, and I am looking for some new professional development opportunities and experiences. We have a conservation fund that we utilize for sending staff out into the field to do conservation work and research relating to aquatic ecosystems. So cool. They go on to say, with my passion for cetacean conservation, I am looking for organizations that are in need of volunteers to help with research devoted to southern resident killer whales, as they are one of the most critical populations that need our help. Yes, they are. I'm intersecting a lot, or interjecting. I have done some research into this, and while there are many out there doing the work, I'm still struggling to find the right place to reach out to. Since it would be across the continent for me, it would need to be a temporary stint, probably 1 to 2 weeks, and I still want to be able to provide significant contribution to these efforts. I also love, Autumn, that you finish with "Have a whaley great day."
Yay.
Have a whaley great day to you too.
Indeed.
I had a really challenging time answering this question, Autumn, and other listeners who might be wanting to do something similar, whether you have a conservation fund or not. So I kind of want to start with some tough truths about researching killer whales, especially in the Pacific Northwest. This is in no way whatsoever meant to dampen anyone's enthusiasm for this work, for southern resident killer whales in particular. I think everybody who listens to the podcast knows we're big, big fans of southern residents, and every single nonprofit, for-profit, government, every single level of government, no matter what country, work that goes into protecting this ecotype. The tough truth, though, is they don't need someone to volunteer for 1 to 2 weeks. None of them do. And in fact, you would be very hard pressed to find any group who will actually go out and see the southern resident killer whales with their actual eyeballs that would take anyone as a volunteer. And the reason for that is they are critically endangered. The ability to be on the water with these animals is so heavily regulated. And thankfully, in a situation we can't say most of the time, there are so many researchers working on this problem. So they simply do not need, nor would they aren't trying to increase the number of people on the water with southern resident killer whales. And so the people who do have the ability to actually go on the water to study them are the researchers themselves, and maybe they're grad students or maybe other people who've been working with them and volunteering for a very long time. All of which is to say, it is an opportunity that is earned. And that doesn't mean that if you don't live in the Pacific Northwest and you can't devote your whole life to researching and protecting the species, that you don't deserve to be a part of the solution to saving them, or that you can't be a part of the solution to saving them. It just means there are other ways to do both of those things. Other really critical ways to do both of those things, often that aren't as flashy, aren't as maybe immediately satisfying, but are just as important and don't have as many people signing up to help. What I mean by this is data crunching is an exponentially large part of any researcher's work, and it's always the thing people don't want to do. Being a southern resident killer whale researcher is really, really friggin' cool 12 months of the year. But you only spend maybe less than 2 months of the year all together. Mm-hmm. Yes, you might actually be out in the field for more than 2 months, but if you take the number of days that you see southern resident killer whales, it's about the equivalent of 2 months, maybe. And the other 10 months of the year, you're analyzing all of the data that you scraped and scrounged to gather when you were in the field. And you're doing comparative literature analysis, and you're doing photo identification analysis, and you're computer programming, or you're actually just taking numbers from a field guide and putting them into a spreadsheet. And the nice thing about what that means for not necessarily the researchers doing this, but the organizations and the nonprofits doing this kind of work, is that in some cases, not all, you can actually volunteer to help with that, the quote unquote less sexy part of the work, kind of from anywhere that has an internet connection. Mm-hmm. So I apologize if that's not what you wanted to hear. I think, of course, there's a part of all of us that would love to say, I want to come out and I want to help. I want to do good work. I want to protect this really significant and endangered species. And wouldn't it be awesome if I got to see them at the same time? The truth is, with southern resident killer whales, that's simply not an option that I am aware of. Again, as with everything that we say, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It is just, I did a lot of digging and I couldn't find something that would kind of meet the 1 to 2 week short-term
Mm-hmm.
criteria, and even opportunities. There are some things that do ask for volunteers, like CETUS and Straight Watch, but they're asking for like a seasons long
Yeah.
commitment. SIMROS is the Turtle Island Marine Research and Education Society, does land-based spotting of multiple species, southern resident killer whales included, though they focus a lot on harbor porpoises. Orca Lab. None of these organizations would be looking for short-term volunteer opportunities, but they're places to reach out to and see if, I think we've talked about this in a lot of episodes in the past. Oftentimes, especially for volunteer work, it's a matter of start anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Start anywhere,
Yeah.
gain experience, name recognition, be willing to show up and do whatever is required, maybe not what you are initially like dream looking to do, and show that commitment, and then who knows what's possible.
Yeah.
And then my final kind of like little piece of this puzzle is, I mentioned SIMRAS. I mentioned the fact that they actually do more about harbor porpoises, and some other lesser known or lesser studied species. Obviously, no one here at Whale Tales is going to suggest that the southern resident killer whales don't need more help. Of course, more people wanting to help southern resident killer whales is great. It's great. However, that being said, we talk all the time. We've talked already in this episode about how little is known about other species, how hard it is for researchers to get funding to do some of the like basic studies that would give us still not even the same baseline understanding of other species of cetacean that we have of southern resident killer whales. So think about if there's an opportunity to contribute to maybe either a species that shares an ecosystem with the southern resident killer whale, so you're still contributing to the overall knowledge of the health of the home of the southern resident killer whale, or even to other cetacean species or other marine health projects in other parts of the world, because it's all one ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is there anything you two wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I don't want to assume where you live, but just guessing because the sentence is across the continent. So just thinking there are Atlantic killer whales, depending on where you live. There are also the North Atlantic right whales, which are also critically endangered. And I know they do, I don't know enough about their volunteering, but I know that they do a lot of spotting from land to, especially during right now when they're looking for calves. And also lots of other species on the East Coast that need work. Spoiler alert for our April episode, there's some really cool species up off the coast of New York and New Jersey that we just learned about. That like they were just dolphins in the East River, which is weird. And why? Nobody knows. So that's a question that could be asked depending on where you live, if that is the area we're guessing. Also, again, not killer whale focused, happy whale
Yes.
volunteers to do matches. It's very like CSI old school matching flukes. So that's a way to get in. It's not just humpbacks over there. It's mostly humpbacks, but they do a lot of stuff with other baleen whales mostly. And some, I think, more rare killer whales, not southern residents, because they don't need to be matched. We know their whereabouts all times. Monterey last week. What the hell, K-Pod? Anyway. But yeah, I think that's a thing. But again, if you, depending on where you live, whatever it is all one ocean and everything helps.
At the end of the day, what we will say is every listener's love for whatever cetacean species was their gateway cetacean species or their favorite cetacean species is something that we honor and respect at Whale Tales. There is a species that brought each, or sometimes even an individual whale or dolphin that brought, or porpoise that brought each of the three of us to Whale Tales. And we know how personal and we know how passionate that fire can be. our aim in answering this question is to provide a lot of different ideas, a lot of different perspectives, and some setting of expectations.
Okay. Lastly, this is from Dorothy on Facebook. If you could be a dolphin, which one would you be and why?
I've been thinking about this the whole episode, and I
know.
don't yet have an answer. But I'm leaning towards one you've never really heard of, or one most people haven't heard of. Just because I want to like go off and be obscure and far away.
Oh, yeah. Oh, just in general, or you don't have a species in name, you just want to be a far off one?
Oh, see, I thought you were gonna like name a species
Yeah, me
we've
too.
never heard of, and I was like, "Ooh, who's there?"
No, I don't. That's why I can't decide between all the like more obscure. I don't know, like peels or
Peels. Well,
Yeah.
the Falklands. There's no humans.
Yep. Basically, yeah, that's really what I'm looking for. I don't want to be a river dolphin, and I don't want to be a killer whale. So yeah, something.
Peels sounds good.
Yeah, I'll go with peels. Yeah. Okay, next.
Okay, mine is spinner dolphin because it sounds fun.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I assume you wouldn't get dizzy, so it would be great. If you did get dizzy, it would probably be an evolutionary problem.
It would.
Yeah.
Good point. More research. Like, why don't they get dizzy? Or do they? And they just don't care.
I don't know what's going on with dolphins' inner ears. Who knows?
So I was wondering if you two would actually be able to guess what mine was going to be.
Well, I was going to think Commersons.
Yeah, because I know that's your absolute favorite.
Yes.
And I still can't hear, even though it was 14 years ago that we saw Commersons.
Oh gosh, that was so long ago.
Squealed in my ear.
They're so like
Yes.
panda bear-esque or panda-esque.
So
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's not Commersons, as cute as they are. I've also been thinking about this all for like the last 24 hours, and I would like nothing more, I think, at this point in the world, to be an hourglass dolphin. I would still look awesome.
Yep, true.
I potentially have hundreds, maybe thousands of friends, but nobody knows me or knows where to find me or anything about me. So yeah, hourglass dolphin. That brings us to the end of this month's episode. Thank you all so much for sticking with us, not just for the 79 episodes that we have there thus far recorded, but also for the craziness that was today's episode and how we're all feeling. We would love to hear your thoughts on this episode or any episode. And thank you all so much for sending in your questions. If you have more, please send them still, because we will do more mailbag episodes.
Yes, we just keep a doc going all year long. Yeah.
So please visit our website at whale-tales.org and find links to all of our social media handles so that you can drop us something.
You can also head to our website to subscribe to the podcast, learn more about supporting us, and becoming a patron. And you can also check out over 1,500 whale, dolphin, and porpoise stories.
That's whale-tales.org. Tales like the stories, not tales like the animal.
And if you've seen a cetacean, we would love to add your story to our library. You can click the share link on our website, or you can contact us on social media, or you can email us a voice memo and tell us all about your incredible cetacean encounter.
Finally, we want to acknowledge that we recorded today's episode on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples and the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Chianu, and Wisanic nations.
Thanks, everybody, and have a whaley great day.